Hello friends! I'm slow doing my video this week because I got sick a week or so ago and I started to get better, and then it took another turn where I started to lose my voice and got a little more sick again. So uh, I've been slow because of that. But today I wanted to talk about finding fear and facing it. And of course, I'm not an expert, and of course I still have a lot to learn, but I also have learned some things. And so my hope is that this is helpful to somebody, even in a little way. So it was like a few weeks ago, I think, some of my family, we watched The Maze Runner. And it's been out for a while, so I'm not too worried about spoiling this show, but if you haven't seen it, then spoiler alert, I'm just going to share a little bit about it. But so in it, this is the first movie. They are in this glade and they're surrounded by walls, and they can't get out of the maze. First of all, they don't know how to get out, but second, they can't go through the walls, and it keeps them in because they're afraid of the grievers, which kill them. And I couldn't help this time as I watched it, and I wasn't even thinking about making a video or anything about fear, but then I saw on the little schedule I had made that this next video was on fear. Anyway, that I wanted to do, but I couldn't help but think how applicable that is. So many times in our lives, our fears are what trap us, are what keep us in to where we think we have to stay. And sometimes we think, oh, this is keeping me safe. Like if you're comparing it to the Maze Runner, we think, oh, this is keeping me safe, is keeping me away from the grievers. I'll just live my life here and I'm safe. But in reality, most of the time, our fears are not keeping us safe. They're just keeping us trapped. They're keeping us locked in and keeping us from truly living and truly finding out what's out there and what we can experience and what we can grow, things that we can do that can help us grow and learn. Something I think is interesting is sometimes facing our fears is really hard. I mean, if you're still going on the Maze Runner, it wasn't easy to go through the maze and face the grievers. That was dangerous in that circumstance. And sometimes our fears aren't easy to face. They do have real consequences or real, I don't know if you want to call them roadblocks, things that are difficult that we have to figure out how to do, and they're not easy. Sometimes, though, they are easier than they appear to be, and it might not be so life-threatening as we think or as difficult, and then we might be like, wow, I'm so glad I did that. I'm so glad I faced that fear and got through that. So for me, an example, I'm going to cough again. I'm trying to, excuse me. So for me, I wanted to share one fear I had that kind of kept me, I don't want to say trapped, but kind of kept me from living like I wanted to. And that was the fear of telling people I did energy work. And it's only been about 2 years now where I've been more vocal about it. I had a few years before that. I was coming out a little more to tell people about what I was doing, but it was a legitimate fear of what others would think. It's not because I was afraid of energy work or that I thought it was weird. I knew, and I still know, that it was good and that it was what I was supposed to do and that it was helping people and that it's real. But I had this fear because I'm very intuitive, and I've always been, but I'm also very logical. And so I've been the person sometimes, I'm not going to lie, I've been the person that's been like, well, some of that stuff seems weird, and I've been kind of skeptical. I like things to make sense to my mind at first. And now I know, and I've known for years, that emotions and intuition are logical. I just might not know why yet. So I don't really have a struggle with that anymore. But I used to struggle, internal conflict between my logic and my intuition or emotions, either or. But So I had this fear of energy work and telling people that they would think it was weird or that it wasn't real, or what were they going to think about me? What were my friends going to say? And I decided I wanted to face that fear more, and I felt like I needed to. And it really was hard, but also not as hard as I thought. It went, there were some ways it was harder and some ways it wasn't than I thought. Maybe it's because a lot more people than I previously thought actually believe in energy work and actually don't think it's weird. So that was really helpful and really good. But I did have a few people in my life tell me, oh, they didn't think it was real, or whatever they want to say. And that's fine. I mean, people obviously are allowed to think and feel how they want. But that shouldn't stop me or any of us from doing what we feel is what we need to do and what we're called to do. And don't let the fears stop us. So that's just a little video on finding and facing fear. And I guess the last thing I want to say is sometimes our fears, we know what they are. We know what we're afraid of. But other times, some of our fears are hidden underneath, and it actually takes some digging and asking ourselves questions to find them. And when it's the right time to do that, for each person, it may be a little different. It's good to do it because sometimes those fears affect us subconsciously and affect how we act and how we behave in a way that we don't even recognize it's because we have fear. So unearthing those fears in ourselves and looking at them and facing them is uncomfortable, but it can be so freeing and feel so good. One way I do this really quick is sometimes I journal or write. I'll just get in a quiet place and I write. Usually, I think you can do it on the computer just fine, but sometimes I write with pen and paper. And I'll just say, what am I afraid of? Or why am I afraid of this thing? And if I just keep writing and don't stop, often truths will come up. And almost always I've had an energy release where I feel I got to at least a root of the problem or something, and it actually helps it release, and it helps me clear some of that energy, and it also helps me see things logically. And a lot of times in my writing, for me personally, I'll find truths, be like, oh yeah, that's the truth, that I should have seen that, logically. But it's been a very helpful activity for me, so I just thought I'd share that. Anyway, thanks for listening. Bye, you guys.